Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 8 of the Hendriks Experience Podcast. Today we have veteran realtor Niels Rasmussen with us. Niels, how long have you been in real estate now?
Going on 13 years now, Jerry.
13 years. And of those 13 years, the last few years you've spent with the Hendriks team?
Yep. 3 years with the Hendriks team, so it's been great.
Yeah, awesome. So today I'd like to jump in and talk a little bit about the change in the demographics and the overall picture that people see and feel and live in the Niagara region. Now, you were born and raised in Niagara Falls, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So
and back in that day, a few decades ago, Niels and I are like the older generation on the team. Most of our team members are in their like late 20s or so. Yeah. And it was nice when you joined the team. Yeah. Thank you, Niels, because I didn't have anybody in my same age bracket. So it was a nice change for me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So similar to myself, I was born and raised in village of Vineland in the town of Lincoln, where you actually live now.
That's right.
And but we came from that same age, that same time, And tell us a little bit about growing up in Niagara Falls.
Well, Niagara Falls is a nice little city. I mean, it's grown immensely now. I mean, it's crazy right now, but I was young when I moved out of there. I was like 13 when I moved from the Falls, so didn't really cut my teeth on too much in that time.
You didn't get into too much trouble.
No, exactly.
At 13, you're just about to get into trouble.
Exactly. That's right.
In order to get into trouble, where did you move to?
We moved to Dundas.
To Dundas, your family.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you lived in Dundas,
yep.
And then what kind of happened from there in your life?
I attended high school and college in Dundas, and then lived in Burlington for a few years, and then my parents moved back to the Falls, where I stayed there.
Okay. And when they moved back to Niagara Falls, was there a reason outside of was it work? Was it like we just missed Niagara Region? What kind of transpired in their life to bring them back to Niagara Falls?
Right. Well, we moved to Dundas because my father had bought a business.
Okay.
And when they moved back to the Falls, he had moved the business to Niagara Falls. So
I see.
He's kind of up and down the highway. So
right. So he bought the business. It was located in Burlington.
In Dundas, yeah.
In Dundas.
Yeah.
And then moved it to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
So what would bring him to want to bring that business back into Niagara Region?
Well, at the time, most of his customers were in the Niagara Region. So he was doing a lot of driving.
From that existing business?
Yes. So he was doing a lot of driving up and down the highway. So he said, well, why am I doing this? Might as well just move the business down there. And that's what he did.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And you made a decision to stay there to finish school?
I had finished school. They didn't leave until I finished school. So I got a job working, and then they left.
Right.
So
what kind of work were you in at that time?
I was in an engineering firm.
Engineering?
Yeah.
Okay. So. And then something major happened in your life. You got married. Remember? You got married. I'd say
it was a few years after, but yeah.
Okay, a few years later, you got married.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But you were in Dundas, Burlington area until the time that you got married.
That's right.
Correct?
Yep. I was working for a construction company, and I met my wife at the construction company, and then a couple of years later, we were married. So 91.
91.
I moved
and
to
in
Vineland.
1991, you moved to Vineland.
My hometown. Been there ever since.
Jeez, I think maybe I was leaving while you were coming in.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, because I was licensed in end of 1988, and in 1989-90, I moved into St. Catharines.
There you go.
So I was leaving, you were coming, but we were both in Niagara.
Yep.
And how did you pick Vineland to move to? Because a lot of people, they are looking at Niagara as such a beautiful place to live. Right. So what brought you back from being Niagara Falls to Dundas area back to Niagara region?
Right. Okay. Well, my wife had grown up in Grimsby, so we felt there was a nice sort of compromise between Niagara Falls and Grimsby, and we liked the area. And her sister actually lived in Vineland, and we ended up buying a house right beside them.
Wow. right next door.
Right next door, yeah.
It's like Raymond. What's that? Everybody loves Raymond.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly.
Except the parents, but
exactly.
This was the sister
right. Yeah,
situation. How did that work out?
It was great. Yeah, it was fantastic. Our kids grew up together, and it was a really good time. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very common when one person, we're seeing a lot of movement from the GTA and other areas they have somebody in their life that moved into Niagara. And what I've seen over the years as well is a lot of times a son or a daughter moves to the Niagara region. It may have been because of affordability. That seems to be the biggest one. So homes are more affordable here. The kids move here. One of the kids move here. Then they start having some babies. And then the grandparents want to be closer to the grandkids.
Right.
And then so they kind of cash in on their place, possibly in GTA or outwards from there, and then move into Niagara. So you see a lot of that happening?
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
People are selling their GTA places, because they're not working from home anymore. I mean, they're not working at the office downtown, wherever, working from home, so they're coming down here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so jumping back a few steps to what has changed over the decades, not just the past few years since COVID,
right,
but going back further, the demographics of our area have greatly changed. Quiet, smaller city, Niagara Falls being a city, but not the larger city it is today. Certainly not the size of, of Toronto or any of the other big cities.
Right.
But most of our population was based on the movement of Europeans coming into Canada after the Second World War. My parents the same in the 50s.
Yep.
When did your parents come into Canada?
In 52, yep.
And where
Yep.
are they from?
Denmark.
Denmark.
Yep.
So back then, what would be the reason that your parents came here in the 1950s? Do you know why? Opportunity. That was the big thing.
That's
Opportunity.
it.
Same
That's
with same with our parents.
Yep.
From Holland, a lot of people moved from Holland. A lot of people moved from Italy. Not as many from Denmark. Denmark's a smaller country.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the day, my parents used to always say it was kind of between going to Australia and to Canada, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you
exactly.
you had the same situation?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
That's really, yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for the same decision, I guess we wouldn't be here today,
There you go.
Niels.
That's right.
Speaking with each other.
Congratulations.
Yes, we made it. We made it this far. So hopefully we have a few more decades to go.
Exactly.
A few more decades. I feel I do in me, so that's all good. But that was a very general trend.
Yeah.
And everybody coming here was for that opportunity. So today, I feel like we have a little bit of a challenge, maybe a little bit of resistance to immigration coming in, because now you've settled into that older generation has now been here for 50, 60, 70 odd years.
Yeah.
Kind of gotten settled, built the area, and settled and set in their ways, right? So it can be a challenge for newcomers coming into the area.
I think what I'm seeing now is maybe what was happening back in the 50s when our parents came over, is that it wasn't such a huge influx sort of all at once. Maybe, they're coming over, they're coming by boat, first of all, so it was a lot less accessible.
My parents, they landed, and they were different families at the time, landed in Halifax.
Yep.
And I don't know where your folks came into or how they settled, if you
I can't
remember
recall,
that.
No.
Yeah. Okay. But coming in different modes of transportation, so to speak.
Right, exactly. And obviously, I don't think there was the coverage, news coverage as well. As about immigration people coming in, it was just, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? I don't think maybe back then it was such a great big deal. It was welcome, let's say, maybe more. I don't know.
Welcome's more. Well, you had a lot less people here, and they had that need and desire for that growth.
Right.
So, welcomed is a great way of putting it. And I think there is a lot of people that still welcome immigration into our country. I think one of the most recent challenges, though, is the uptick in the the sheer vast number of the number of immigrants that the government is bringing into our country.
That's right.
So for a number of years, it was set at around 250,000. Then it went to 300,000. Now we're talking 500,000 a year.
Right. And I don't know this, but I mean, back in the 50s, I don't think they had a mandate as to how many people they're bringing in. I think people just came here.
They just came.
They weren't invited. They just came, right? Sort of deal, right? So
it was
maybe a difference in how it was processed. Let's say I don't know, but with such a huge influx in such a short period of time, it does put a stress on the housing.
Yeah, and that's where you hit it bang on there. Housing. So when you have a limited supply of housing and you bring in more people than what your housing can accommodate, when you're bringing more people faster than you can build homes, that's going to cause a big stressor for people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even the student population. We have Brock University, awesome university, and a lot of students coming to school, a lot of international students.
Yep.
And one of the stressors that we're finding is that the government, the schools are bringing more than what they could accommodate even for the student level, right? So you have that challenge. You have homes aren't being built fast enough. You have the stressors of the higher interest rates today. There's a big culmination of challenges.
A lot going on. It's like the perfect storm almost.
The perfect storm, yes. Now, thankfully, we have interest rates that are about to change and come down.
Right.
And so that can sometimes give us some new challenges as well.
Yeah, I think, I think once the interest rates start to go to levels like 4% or whatever, I think we're going to have higher prices in the housing market. I mean, it's going to be maybe more challenging than it is now. Mm-hmm. But people don't want to go into mortgages that, certainly they can't afford, of course, but they just want that lower rate, right? And some people can't qualify currently either, right? So that's a big change in their lives as well.
Yeah, the qualification being the biggest challenge. So we have these people coming in because of the affordability. As you mentioned, let's jump a number of decades from the situation where of families moving here from the 50s and what happened at COVID. Because COVID was probably the biggest game changer when it came to a shift in demographics as far as geographically where people were living. Mm-hmm. They no longer needed to work in the downtown core of a major city. Toronto, of course, being the major, most common one to discuss, right?
Yeah.
So we have all these people that were working offices. You mentioned this earlier. And COVID hit, and companies found out that it can work to work away from home.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them probably, if they weren't tied into a major lease, they probably gave back some office space.
As far as the office goes. Yeah, right, so that's a different problem. That's a problem for the GTA to figure out their office space situation. Here, it's good for Niagara as far as that goes, right? We need, at the same time that some people may be challenged by immigration does keep that big wheel turning, right? Immigration does create jobs in our region, in our cities within the Niagara area, right? So it's important to have that immigration. I think the most important factor is finding that balance between available housing, needing jobs. We also have an older demographic. All of our parents are now grandparents, great-grandparents, and that baby boomer generation, which I'm on the tail end. Mm-hmm. You're a couple of years before me. And but that aging population is maybe not being replaced quick enough or will be over the next 10 years. So there's a lot of reasons why we need to have immigration to our country.
Right.
But again, you really need to find that balance.
I think it's important, absolutely. Touching on the COVID when it first hit, I mean, I think I had a listing at that point in time, and people weren't allowed to go out and see houses. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, geez, the homeowners are going, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah,
it's like, well, we're going to sell it as soon as we can, right? So,
as soon as we can, yeah.
But in hindsight, had we held on for 8 months, they may have gotten more money for it, because by the time everybody figured out what was happening, that market just kind of went to a boom.
Yeah.
But you didn't know at that time. Everything was like doom and gloom at that point.
Right? That was pretty short-lived, as I recall it, though. We had that, March, April challenge, and then into May. But as I spoke to on a previous episode, I did feel that people were going to get a little bit stir crazy, need to move out and want a change in lifestyle, and that we were actually going to see a sharp appreciation of values, and that the market bounced back very quickly. And bounce back it did. We've talked about this on previous episodes, and the sheer volume of people. And again, it was another perfect storm. It was lowest interest rates ever seen.
Yeah.
People wanting to change in their lifestyle within Niagara Region or those coming from the GTA and elsewhere. And then also investors, because interest rates were so low, prices were still considered low at the time compared to outside areas in larger cities.
Yep.
So those three things cause a far quick acceleration of home values. And then again, it became difficult for buyers to buy. We've talked about this before as well, 10, 15 offers on the property. And now it's a little more balanced out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how do you see that as benefiting buyers today, and where should they be at in making a change moving forward and making a move?
With the current market now? Well, I think it's a good time for buyers to buy, but everybody has to buy when they need to buy, right? Regardless of the market's doing. If you're not ready to move, you're not ready to move, right? So if you're in that bubble of wanting to move and you're thinking that now's a good time, I think it actually is. I think the interest rates are, they're not at 2%, and I don't think we're ever going to get there again. But 4 and 5% is a really good rate for a home.
Absolutely. Historically, it's super low.
That's right.
I remember back in 1990 buying a house, and I was at 14.25% interest.
Right.
And we thought if it ever goes below 10%, that would be incredible, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And now we're complaining at 6, 7, 8%, right?
Well,
it's all relative to where you've been, I think, and where what you're used to.
Well, back in the 70s, it was like 19, 22%. And
right around 80, 82
there,
recession, they hit into those low 20s, 22%, So it's, like I say, it's all relative to what you're used to. And I think we're getting used to a little bit more normalcy in the interest rates. But you made a great point, Niels, and that is desire and qualifying. So if you do have a desire to make a move, then make the move.
Yeah.
But of course, you have to also qualify.
Right.
And so what people are doing, a lot of people right now, they're taking shorter terms if they can qualify based on a little bit higher interest rate.
Yep.
And then they're going to wait for that downfall and then lock into a 5-year term later.
Exactly.
So I know we're going a little bit off topic, but the fact of the matter is Niagara is a very desirable place to live. People will continue to move here. Yeah. It's beautiful, and we just need to get accustomed to the changes. I can appreciate that a lot of the locals that have lived here a long time feel that it's no longer an affordable place to live. I really respect and appreciate that. At the same time, the costs in Toronto and other cities compared to the quality of life that you can experience in Niagara Region,
right,
I don't think there's a better deal out there. And I'll leave it at that.
There you go.
Join us next time when we have another great guest like Niels on to share with you. Cheers.